Welcome to Compatible Minds, where we help you align your mindset, habits, and inner world for real growth. Before we dive in, hit like and subscribe to Compatible Minds. We're here to grow and level up together. Today we are talking about how to rewire your brain for discipline. Let's go through what you will learn. First, a breakdown of why discipline feels hard. We then are going to talk about how discipline is built, not forced. Then we will go through the process of starting with your identity. We will talk about how to make discipline easy, how to reward the right behaviour, and finally, my favourite part, sharing an actionable step you can do today. Why is it so hard to stay disciplined? Even when you know exactly what to do. You set goals, you feel motivated, you start strong, and then you fall off. Your brain isn't lazy, it's just wired for comfort. But the good news, it's something you can train. Just like building strength in the gym, your brain adapts to what you repeatedly do. Every time you choose focus over distraction, action over avoidance, discipline over comfort, you're strengthening that pathway. And at first, it might feel uncomfortable. That's normal because you're stepping outside of what your brain is used to. But with repetition, something shifts. What once felt hard starts to feel natural. What once required effort starts to feel automatic. And that's the moment discipline stops feeling like force and starts becoming part of who you are. Let's go deeper into this. I'm going to show you how to rewire your brain for discipline using simple, science-based principles. Let's build a mind compatible with consistency. First, let's talk about why discipline feels hard. Your brain is designed to conserve energy. It prefers familiar patterns, easy rewards, and minimal effort. This is controlled by a system often referred to as the habit loop, a concept explored in The Power of Habit, written by Charles Duhigg. It follows the habit loop: cue, behaviour, reward. Your brain repeats behaviours that feel good and avoids those that feel uncomfortable. That's why scrolling your phone feels easy. But working on your goals feels hard. It's not a character flaw, it's conditioning. So if you want discipline, you don't fight your brain. Instead, you rewire it. To build discipline, you don't fight your brain, you rewire it through intentional conditioning. And rewiring starts with understanding what your brain is actually doing in those moments. When you avoid a task, delay something important, or choose the easier option, your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to protect you from discomfort. Anything that feels uncertain, challenging, or effortful gets labeled in your mind as a potential threat. So your brain looks for a faster reward. This may look like something familiar, something easy, something that gives immediate relief. That's why you might reach for your phone instead of starting your work. Or choose comfort instead of progress, not because you lack discipline, but because your brain is prioritizing short-term reward over long-term benefit. And the more you repeat that pattern, the stronger it becomes. It turns into a default response. Effort equals discomfort. Discomfort equals avoidance. But here's the key shift. Discipline isn't about eliminating discomfort. It's about changing your relationship with it. Instead of seeing discomfort as something to avoid, you begin to see it as a signal, a sign that you're doing something meaningful, something that requires growth. And when you start responding differently in those moments, even in small ways, you begin to break the old pattern and replace it with a new one. That's how rewiring happens, not through force, but through small, repeated choices that teach your brain a new way to respond. Let's talk about how discipline is built, not forced. Most people think discipline means pushing yourself harder, using more willpower, forcing yourself to act. But willpower is limited. It fades throughout the day. And when it runs out, your habits take over. That's why discipline isn't built through intensity. It's built through repetition. Every time you repeat an action, you strengthen a neural pathway in your brain. This process is known as neuroplasticity, strengthening neural pathways through repetition, not intensity. The more you repeat a behavior, the easier it becomes, until eventually it feels automatic. Now that's real discipline, not forcing yourself, but becoming someone who naturally follows through. And that shift doesn't happen all at once. It happens through small, repeated decisions made daily. Because every time you follow through on something you said you would do, even if it's small, you strengthen a pattern in your brain. You build trust with yourself. And self-trust is one of the foundations of discipline. On the other hand, every time you avoid, delay, or break that promise, you reinforce the opposite pattern. So discipline isn't just about what you do, it's about what you prove to yourself. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. A small action repeated daily builds far more discipline than a big action done occasionally. Because consistency creates familiarity, and what's familiar feels easier. Over time, your brain stops resisting the action. It starts expecting it. It becomes part of your routine, something you do without needing to debate it. And that's when discipline shifts from something you have to think about to something that simply becomes part of how you live. Not because it's forced, but because it's been practiced enough to feel natural. Let's talk about the process of starting with your identity. If you want to rewire your brain, start here. Identity. Because your brain always tries to act in alignment with who you believe you are. If you see yourself as inconsistent, you'll act inconsistent. If you see yourself as disciplined, you'll start acting that way. So instead of focusing only on outcomes, focus on identity. Don't say, I need to work out. Say, I'm someone who takes care of my body. Then prove it with small actions. Every time you follow through, you reinforce that identity. And over time, your behavior aligns with it. Because identity works like a filter. It shapes the decisions you make every day. When you believe I'm not disciplined, your brain looks for evidence to support that. You hesitate, you delay, you avoid, and those actions reinforce the belief. But when you begin to shift that identity, even slightly, your behavior starts to change. You begin asking different questions. Questions like, what would a disciplined person do right now? And even if the answer is small, you act on it. That action becomes proof, and that proof strengthens the identity. This is how the cycle changes. Instead of belief, behavior, and reinforced belief of inconsistency, you create a new loop, and this looks like small action, evidence, stronger identity, and better action. Over time, this compounds. You don't need to convince yourself with words, you prove it through action. And once your brain has enough evidence, it stops questioning it. Because now, discipline isn't something you're trying to become. It's something your brain accepts as true. And when that happens, showing up stops feeling like effort. It starts feeling like alignment. Next, let's talk about how to make discipline easy. Here's where most people get it wrong. Starting is the hardest part. They make discipline too hard, too big, too overwhelming, and their brain resists it. So here's the shift. Make it easy to start. Instead of a 30-minute workout, do 5 minutes. Instead of a 20-minute meditation, do 1 minute. Instead of 1 hour of studying, do 10 minutes. Why? Because starting is the hardest part. And once you start, you often continue. Small actions reduce resistance, and repetition builds discipline. Because the easier it is to repeat something, the more likely it becomes part of your routine. You remove the friction, you remove the excuses, and you make showing up feel natural instead of forced. This is where many people go wrong. They rely on motivation to start, but motivation is inconsistent. Ease, on the other hand, is reliable. So the goal isn't to push harder, it's to design your habits in a way that makes them easier to begin. Because once something feels easy to start, consistency becomes inevitable, and consistency is what turns effort into discipline. Let's move on to talking about how to reward the right behavior. Your brain learns through reward and positive association, so if you want to rewire it, you need to reinforce the behavior. After completing a habit, make sure to acknowledge it. For example, even something simple like, that's a win. This creates a positive association, and your brain starts linking discipline with reward, which makes it easier to repeat. Now to my favorite part, I have been looking forward to teaching you a simple, actionable step you can do today. Let me explain. Choose just one habit you've been struggling with, then reduce it to something so small it feels effortless. For example, 1 minute, 1 action, 1 step. Then do it today. Not perfectly, just consistently, because discipline is built through repetition, not pressure. Let's recap the 5 lessons together. Lesson number 1, to rewire your brain for discipline. Understand your brain follows habits. not motivation. Lesson number 2, repetition builds neural pathways. Lesson number 3, identity shapes behavior. Lesson number 4, small actions reduce resistance. And finally, lesson number 5, rewards reinforce consistency. Remember, discipline isn't something you force, it's something you become. Thank you so much for joining me today. Investing in yourself is truly powerful and something I deeply believe in. If you're serious about building real discipline, I created a 30-day system to help you rewire your brain and actually follow through, called the Identity Reset System. See the link in the description. Let's keep learning, leveling up, and building a healthier, more aligned mind together. See you in the next video.